All right, welcome back to class. And we will continue from where we left off. I'll pick up from where we left off on feedback. So, when we're looking at feedback, feedback is basically giving concise, which is basically precise, short information to your client when you've gone through a few sessions, and they'll basically be able to use that as a way to be able to move ahead and continue further. And it's something that we'll use as, like, when you get feedback from somebody and you become encouraged to do things a little more. That's basically the job of a feedback. But sometimes you might be giving them feedback that they may not really like you might point out something that, okay, this is something that is not really working out, so, like, what do we do about it, right? So in order to understand that a little further, I will tell you what are the different kinds of feedbacks that we can use and how these feedbacks can help. Right? So the first kind of feedback is something that's just very descriptive, right? Very observational, and it might be very similar to reflecting. Right? Suppose if they're talking about their manager and you can see that they're becoming, like, very tight and angry. So what is your observation from that? I can see that I can sense the anger coming in from you when you're talking about your manager, right? You're just basically describing and what you're observing. That is one kind of feedback. Another one is to describe an impact that you can see of something and how that has been affecting the client, right? So for example, if you notice that every time somebody comes and interrupts them, suppose they're saying every time I talk, or if they bring up different conversations, right, with different people, and you can see that they repeatedly are getting cut off in a conversation. Like, I'm talking to my friend, somebody else comes, maybe 2 days later they bring up another conversation with their teacher, maybe another person comes and cuts the conversation, right? And you're noticing how that's making them you're noticing how it's making them feel, right? Maybe it makes them feel unheard or nobody's listening to them, right? So our response to that would be, I notice that every time you bring up somebody cutting you off, you feel like you're unheard, like nobody's listening to you, right? So that means you're relaying a pattern that you're seeing, and you're giving it back to them to show that this is what I've observed, that every time you bring up that somebody has cut you off, you feel unheard of, right? Then the next one is when you become reflective, right? When you're trying to so, reflecting of meaning, reflecting of feelings, but now you're seeing it as a pattern, right? So maybe it could be like, they bring up something and maybe they said that they've gotten scoldings from their mom, that they did not do something. Maybe 2-3 days later something happens in college or in school, and then the teacher says that, okay, you're not finishing things, and they're getting scolded for that. And maybe somebody else does something to them and they get criticized again. So whenever they are being criticized, you notice that they slowly start to withdraw. Maybe they say that, okay, my mom scolded me, so I haven't spoken to her since yesterday, right? Or maybe the teacher is then, they'll be like, okay, every time I see that teacher in that classroom, I choose not to attend the class. Or if it's something happening with their friend, they're saying, I don't talk to them anymore. So you see that they're withdrawing, right? But how are you noticing that as a pattern? You see that every time they're being criticized, they withdraw back. And now that's something that you're noticing. So how you ask them is, okay, I see that every time you're getting criticized, you withdraw yourself back. Now that is feedback, right? You're noticing something and then you're showing them, okay, this is what I see of what's happening, right? The next is something that recognizes their strength, right? So for example, they come and they tell you, I I do not want to sit in that meeting today because I wasn't feeling so great about it, and I knew that I would have to take that very difficult conversation with my manager. I'll have to take it. But then they told you about how it went. Now one thing that you're noticing, that even though it was very uncomfortable for them, maybe they said that I got a headache before the conversation, but this was how the conversation went. So you saw that the conversation was really hard for them, but then they managed to sit through it and finish it. Now that's a good thing, right? So your feedback to them could be, I see that the conversation was very hard for you, but it's very encouraging to see that you sat through it and you finished it. That's a really good thing, right? So you're pointing out on key strengths that they have, like even if it's something as small as that they just chose to sit and finish off the conversation. They did it, right? So you're reflecting their strengths. Another thing which tends to come more often is when you're gently giving them constructive feedback, right? So if they come to you and they say that, oh, I went to church today, but nobody spoke to me in church. Okay, you've spoken, figure out, okay, what are the different kinds of communication skills you can do it. All right. Next Sunday, they're saying the same thing. I went to church, nobody spoke to me today. Third Sunday, same thing. I went to church, nobody spoke to me. Right? So what we can then say is like, I can see that you want to have a connection with somebody, but are you also putting in all of the exercises that we've done? Or are you waiting for somebody to come and talk to you all the time? Because in a conversation, you'll also have to go out and talk, right? But then if they keep pushing people away or pretend like they don't want to talk, nobody will actually come and talk to them. Now, that is something that you have identified. So I can see that we've tried to work on many things, but it doesn't seem that you're practicing these when you're actually there. So what's wrong? Right? So that's a criticism. But then the way you're criticizing also is very gentle. Right? It's not that, oh, we've done all of these things, why are you not doing it? You're supposed to do it, no, by now. We can't be too harsh with them when it comes to these things, right? So feedback is really important because based on these things, they kind of become milestones for them, right? So then they'll be like, oh, I haven't been doing it. I've just been waiting for the other person to come, right? Or maybe when you're identifying their strengths, they'll be like, yeah, it's right. I was actually able to sit through it. So maybe the next time something like this happens, maybe I'll be able to do it even more, right? So feedback helps the person identify certain milestones and helps them look at different things that they can also do. All right, make sense? Okay. Before we go to the next chapter to understanding the different particular issues when it comes to counseling, we'll practice a few drills. Yes, 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 no response, yes, no?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So for this, basically the different skills that you'll be focusing on the drills that I will give you now is on questioning, right? What we are going to try to do now today, because I know in the previous class we were looking at um, different kinds of responding skills. Now today we're going to focus mostly on questioning skills, like how can we ask the right questions to the person. But remember, when you're doing this, you'll have to remember solar. What is solar? What is solar? SOLER, different things. Sitting and facing them properly, open posture, leaning in, all right, eye contact, sitting relaxed, okay, one more, reflexes,
O- Open in the posture.
open posture, right? So it's nice to see that a few of you actually remember. That's really good. That's great. So now keep these things in mind. And as you're coming here, I'll be giving you different scenarios. Now your goal is to ask them the right questions to figure out more answers, right? So let's try to do 3 to 4 drills. We will have a mix of students online and students in the class as well. Let me just stop sharing so that my screen will be a little bigger. Okay. So for the first one, so this is how it's going to go, right? I'd want to have for the first one, let's have 2 students in person. The next one in person, one online, two of each, right? So 2 drills of in persons, and the other one will have one in person and one online, right? So who would be the first 2 from class who would want to come forward? We'll start off with the first row. Vanilla, you're done. So one of the Two of the three of you can come forward. And let's not waste time because we actually need to go to the next chapter as well. So two of you can come and sit. Can the ones online hear through this microphone? Okay, perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So in this first case, the two of you decide who would be counselor and counselee. That's first. So you'll be the counselee. All right. So your problem is, so the main issue that you'll give as a problem is that you keep messing things up over and over again. You keep making a mistake and nothing is going right for you. Okay. That is your core problem. Now, before you get to that problem, it depends on the counselor how she starts her conversation with you. Okay. But is it clear? Do you remember what your core problem is? You keep making mistakes, you mess things up all the time. Okay. Try to see which microphone we could use. You don't do.
No voice, ma'am.
Yeah, just 1 second. They're figuring a few things out. So it depends on what are the different things she'll ask you. She'll ask. Also, everybody else in class, just make a note of what's happening, see what's going right, see what's going wrong, and we will discuss that. Okay?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah. Can I know your name, please?
I'm Mahima.
Okay.
I'm Mahima.
Yeah, nice to know. So, how are you doing? How things have been going?
Everything is going good, but I have one issue in my college and with my friends. I have issue. Always I'm being with there, so sometimes I'm doing mistake and all. For like if they're talking something, if I will say wrong, and they will think like wrong thing. I'm saying this and all, so they're saying, "Why you talking like that?" So this is very hurting me. So I'm doing this mistake again and again. So how I can solve this problem?
So, yeah. What do you think has brought you here today? So, do you finding it hard to handle your emotions, or
Yeah,
what's the
because I'm
thing?
feeling inside to me like sadness and all, because I'm not comfortable no, because every time I'm doing mistake and they are thinking like what.
Okay. How do you think that you can deal with this?
I have not solution of this.
So can you just tell me briefly what went wrong? What's the thing that's concerning you and your friend?
Actually, in my college, one day my group, like friends group, are sitting. So they're talking something about topic and all. So that time I said something like, you cannot do this. I just say simply, but they're thinking why I'm doing this. And I'm feeling this, why I'm not capable to, like, I'm doing again and again this thing. This is hurting me and mistake for me.
Okay. The words that you spoke has hurted your friend. You mean that?
Yeah. But for me, it's mistake. Like I'm saying again and again, I'm doing this. So I'm feeling this is mistake for me.
Okay. Do you think about the words that you speak before?
I
Or
just like normally only I said, but they felt bad.
So what do you think about this? So seeing them being sad,
Yeah, I'm feeling hurting and sadness inside of
sad.
me.
Okay. Can you please elaborate more like in the sense what's really hurting you, or is the word that you spoke to your friends, or are you just imagining that you heard them?
I just said simply, but for me, I'm feeling this. I'm doing mistake and again and again.
All right. So, what did you notice about this conversation, and how do you think it could be better? Yes, Prem, you can speak.
Everything was fine. Like they opened up really good, but I felt like there would be some more connection. I know that they're in a class or things like that, but I felt like there should be more open connection. Like, how are you today? And I'm your counselor. I'm here to help you. You can open up with me, and things like that. And uh, there should be a friendly bond because, like, Anusha and Mahima are there to, like, Mahima is there to open up, and Anusha is there to understand her feelings and everything. So I just felt like there should be an open connection, like because Mahima came to share the feelings, Anusha is there to understand the feelings and everything. So I just felt like there should be questions like, what's happening with you lately? How's your daily routine? What's going on with you? And why you are feeling so sad? Okay, you told your friend something about it. Do you felt like apologizing to him? Do you feel anything guilty about yourself? Things like that. So I felt like Mahima should have been open. Yeah, like she would have told her, yeah, I feel guilty about it. Maybe I should apologize. Maybe I should say like that. So I just felt like that.
Okay. So, okay, before I say anything, anybody from class? Anything that you've noticed? I'll just pass the microphone if you want to talk. Wait. Anybody?
I just felt like the conversation was happening in a loop. Anusha was struggling a lot to get things out of Mahima, and yeah, like maybe one question, if you could explain the whole conversation that happened between your friends, because it was just on a surface level. I said something simply, and they got hurt. I am also sad, but what was the conversation? The whole conversation about what it is, say simply. What does that simply mean? And what exactly did you say? And what exactly was the conversation? So that way, it would have helped Hanusha also to, say something. I think she was also struggling to, did that really hurt you? What made you? She was trying to understand that, and again, like I said it simply. So yeah, like a whole loop.
Okay, those were very good observations from the class. A few things that I would say also would be a repetition to a few things that you can leave. A few things that some of you have already mentioned. Now, what happens? What are the first few things that needs to happen when you are a counselor inside a counseling room? The first thing is you would identify that I'll just stand. Okay, class, if that's okay, I'll just stand here. So the first few things that we need to understand is that it's a complete stranger. You don't know the person at all, right? So a few brief things would be introducing yourself, asking them why did they come here, right? And for you also, when you're doing these drills, don't look at them as your friend. They're also a complete stranger to you, right? So as a counselor, as you're coming in, the first few things would be, okay, my name is, so if I'm the counselor, I'll be, my name is Gabriella. It's really nice to have you here today. What brings you here, right? Then maybe they may say, I'm having some issues with my friends and things are not going so well. Okay, which college do you study in? What are your friends like, right? Slowly build up a conversation first for them. Immediately addressing the problem may not work in a real life setting. Here it might work because you actually know each other, right? But in a real life setting, you immediately ask them what's the problem. It's not going to come out whatsoever, right? But maybe things will change in the second one because now you will have somebody online as well and they would be talking. So a few things to remember is start the conversation like you're meeting a random stranger, right? Build up the rapport. That's very important, right? Sit comfortably, right? The things that they've done is that both of them were very relaxed. They kept an open posture. They maintain eye contact. Really good, right? Now, a few things to work on is that initial building of the rapport, right? Talk to them, make them comfortable, ask them a few things about themselves. Don't immediately jump into the problem, right? And when the problems come up, remember the different kinds of questions, close-ended, open-ended, right? If you specifically need to understand, okay, what is the problem with the friend? Okay, who are these friends? Is it the same with every person or is it just with a few friends, right? And another few things that we can look at is if you want specific answers, like Vinay said, what is the meaning of the word simply? What does simply mean to you, right? Maybe then I also don't know what that means, but maybe she'll be able to tell you a little more, right? Sometimes maybe it could be the topic of conversation that's also not right. Okay, so we'll move on to the second drill. Can we have somebody online? Prem, did you raise your hand for that?
Yeah, fine. Yes,
Okay.
I'm up.
All right. Can somebody come in from the second row as another person? Raju is done, so that's okay. The other four, quickly, we actually don't have time.
Do I have to open my camera also?
If you want to, yeah, that should be fine.
Okay.
Somebody come quickly. We don't have time. Okay, so we have Vinay coming in. Okay, you can sit in like this.
Hello, Anna.
Okay, so from the two of you, who's going to be a counselor and who would be the counselee?
Vinay Anna can be a counselor.
Okay, so Prem, you want to be the counselee?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Vinay Anna can't hear you.
Hey, Prem.
Yes, perfect.
okay. So Prem, your situation is going to be that nothing, like your main core problem is nothing is ever going to change.
Okay.
Okay. So that's going to be your problem. And that's your core problem. Now it's up to Vinay to go ahead to begin his session with you. All right, you can start.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, Anna. How are you?
What's your name?
My name is Prem
Hi, Prem.
Samuel.
Prem Samuel. Nice. So where you from, Prem?
Anna, basically, sir, I'm from Delhi.
Delhi.
Yeah, I
Okay.
live in Delhi. I'm born and brought up in Delhi also.
Mm, right. I'm sorry, I didn't tell my name. I'm Vinay, by the way. You can call me
Hello,
Vinay.
hello, Vinay.
So I'm from Bangalore. Nice. Delhi and Bangalore meeting here.
Yeah.
So what brings you here, Prem?
Anna, sorry. I'm lately feeling very low on myself these days because I feel like nothing is gonna change because of my past choices which I have done, and I'm struggling with my career and things like that. And I'm waiting for a change, but I'm not getting to it.
Hmm. So you're particularly looking on your career or everything?
Everything I'll say.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Routine, career, my studies, everything. I'm. I
Hmm.
want a break, like break in the sense that break with it will help me to change my life, kind of.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. So Prem, can you just take me through your school? How was your schooling?
My schooling was good. I changed a lot of schools when I was
Hmm.
in school.
Hmm.
Uh, then there was some traumas also in my school because I was not that a good student. I was below average,
Hmm.
and I was not into studies. But
You
I
were?
used to.
Sorry,
I
you
was
were?
I was not into studies so much.
Okay, not into studies.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was more in co-curricular activities like
Hmm.
sports, art and
Hmm.
craft, things like that. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so there, but I had many friends in school also.
Hmm. You had many friends.
Yeah, I had many friends also from school. Still, I have them, but
Hmm.
we don't meet often.
Okay. Okay. And like you said, you had some traumas in school. Can you explain that, please?
So as I told you earlier, like I had bad decision of my life, which I have taken before.
Hmm.
So there are things like when you grow up, you have surroundings, which is not good, and it builds you up in a different way, different manners.
Hmm.
So I get so many punishments in the school, in
Hmm.
front of class, and things like that, and so it kind of built a trauma in me that okay, I'm like a person, I'm like this person, I can't be changed, or like a picture, like an image I got built in front of me.
Hmm.
So things like that was a trauma.
So you were punished in front of your friends and teachers, so that you
Yeah,
feel ashamed.
yeah.
Can you tell me which class was it?
It was, I guess, I don't remember,
Hmm.
but it
High school, primary?
it was not a high school. It was a primary school, but it was like I guess fourth or fifth class. I guess. Yeah,
Hmm. Okay.
that's like that.
Hmm. Okay.
And after that, many schools were changed. Like
Hmm.
as I told you, I changed so many schools. Like so I changed. I guess in my lifetime, 7 schools.
7 schools.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a record, man. So if you can just tell me um like you were punished in your primary, and if you can just
Sorry,
tell,
sorry.
you were punished, and you had some traumatic experience in your primary school
Hmm.
section. um would you be able to just tell me one incident or something that we can go through?
So I don't know if I share it online, but I'm keeping this conversation real.
Hmm.
So I feel like I abused a teacher when I was in my fourth standard, and
Mm.
teacher got to heard the word which I used.
Mm.
I was not telling it to the teacher, but she heard it,
Mm.
and she was like started to beat me up, things like that, and
Mm.
took me to the principal.
Mm.
And for the, I guess, 2 weeks, I was sitting down in the class, like on the floor. That
Oh.
was my punishment. Yeah, so
Mm.
things like that. But eventually, I like when I grow up, I like forgot that thing basically.
Mm. So they made you sit on the floor because you bad mouthed teacher.
Yeah, a bad mouth.
Mm. So maybe in school, like when you were going through, maybe yeah, pray, we'll pray for you.
No, all good now.
All praise
Saved by
God.
God.
Praise God.
Saved by Jesus Christ now.
All right, I just made Vinay abruptly stop, but thank you so much, Prem and Vinay, for
Thank
taking
you, ma'am.
part and being very active participants in it. So now, what did you all see was different? What was the few things that you pointed out?
Ma'am, this was like a friend's conversation with each other. It was not a counselor counseling this one. And as a counselor, the person who comes there, he doesn't post out with art at the earliest because he doesn't have trust. So it was not seen here, and
It was not.
it was not seen actually. The
I
the
can't
trust part,
make of that word. It's not really
the trust part. Basically, I'm talking about the trust part.
trust. Okay.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
All right. Anybody else? Any other feedback? Yes, Prem.
Um, Well, I feel like as Anna was saying, like I felt like I was open very much, but I feel like that's my nature. I get open up very soon. It's
Mm,
like
mm.
it's in my nature.
Yeah.
So even if people talk to me normally, I just open up.
Yeah. Yeah. So based on what Prem said, right now, that is a variable that we will have to consider. There will be some people who would be like this. They would easily just continue to talk and open up, right? But if you've seen other drills that we've had before this, the person may have not opened up so easily, right? Even if it comes to somebody like me, you ask me to talk about me, I will actually go on because I like talking and I like sharing, right? But for some people, you may have to probe in a little more, right? A few key things that I would bring up as to why this conversation continued going in a flow was, one thing is, have you noticed the yeah, just give me a minute, I will come back to you. Have you noticed the way the breaks were given like through yes, okay, all right, right? It showed the other person that yes, I was listening, and there were occasional head nods because you know that the other person could see you, right? So it showed that the other person was listening, right? And a few things was the way the questions were being asked, like he picked up a few key points that Prem had brought out. So he said that, okay, according to Vinay being the counselor, he felt it was important to go look at what may have happened in school. Maybe it could have started from there. Now that's okay, because maybe for you, you might need to figure out, okay, how long ago has this started from? So he started from school and he picked out that in school, something has troubled Prem. And if you've noticed the way he was reflecting everything, he paraphrased, he reflected meaning, and he reflected emotion. I don't know whether you've got that. But then one of the key things in the point of paraphrasing was when Prem was talking about that he affected a teacher in a certain way. He rephrased it, but he made it very concise. He made it into a two-line thing like, oh, you badmouthed the teacher, and this is what happened. This was your punishment, right? So that is paraphrasing. And David mentions that could have shared about parents' background, school friends' background. Yeah. This is also something that we can keep in mind, right? Depending on the course of where you're headed, maybe a few things could be asked for, getting their personal background first, right? It helps. So when we are asking about the client, one of the few key things that we ask for, do you remember like their own personal history first? That is something that it would be great if we could go through that first, right? Okay, so he figured out that he was born in Delhi. So okay, are you living alone? Are you living with your parents? Do you have siblings? What does your parents do? How is your relationship with your parents and with your siblings? This is a very good thing that you picked up, David. This is great. So remembering that, don't forget that personal history is also one of the first things that you need to ask, right? You need to find out. Because in order to understand why a person is behaving as a certain way in the present, a lot of things also tends to be linked to their past. And it's becomes like more of like a checklist, right? To see if like, okay, if anything that has to do with his family is affecting them currently, right? Okay. Renita, you raised your hand earlier.
Yes, Pastor, I had a question. I mean, I did see they did both of them did great. As a counselor, Vinay did ask many questions. But my question is, aren't we, apart from asking questions and getting to know the issues, aren't we also supposed to look at giving some suggestions to those issues? Like,
So,
how do we resolve them, right?
mm, mm. So when it comes to helping them resolve, it usually would not happen within the first 20 minutes, sometimes not even the first 2 sessions of a counseling relationship, because that comes in much later. Because in order for us to be able to understand, Prem, I hope you don't mind, but I'll just use your example. I hope that's okay. I'll just use the session. Did that just happen?
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't heard you. What?
Can I continue using the examples like
Yes, ma'am. Sure. I have no issue. Yeah.
okay.
Please.
All right, thank you. So, for example, if we take the incident that Prem brought out, he brought that a few things had happened in his past, right? There were a few traumas in relation to his school. Now, in order for us to be able to figure out what that trauma has actually caused him to be, we need to explore what are the different things, right? Like one of the things that Vinay had pointed out was shame. He felt shame because he was punished in that way. So now how far has this shame been continuing, right? Whether it's just through fourth grade or through all the different grades that he went through, because he said school in general was a bit problematic. It would be wise for us to explore all the different areas first before we come to giving solutions or helping them come to a resolution. As counselors, I know that the first thing that we want to do is help them get the answer that they need. But remember, before you get there, it becomes a lot of probing and asking the right questions first. Because sometimes it may take 2, 3 sittings altogether to actually figure out what is the core problem. Maybe he might brought out school trauma as something that could be a potential problem. But the more you figure out, we could have realized that maybe by 11th grade he's overcome it, and maybe another issue had started in when he was in college. So then school trauma has nothing to do with it now anymore, right? So remember that when we look into helping a person get to a solution, that is the end goal. But ideally it does not come within the first sitting or like the first 2, 3 sessions. It takes quite a while to get there, but also it shouldn't be like something as a priority, like no, within the first session we have to get it done. So it is something that takes time. It requires a lot of questioning to look through. Maybe a few things will come in really easily, like for example, if all they have to look at is fixing their sleep schedule, maybe within one session we could get that done, right? You'll figure out, okay, maybe they're either scrolling too much or they're really active on their screens, or their minds are occupied by something else. So targeting those things makes sense, right? But a few key things would genuinely take a little bit more time, and it's completely okay to take 2, 3 sessions to actually figure that part out. Did I answer your question, or do you have some more
Yeah.
doubts?
No, it's good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So anybody in class, any doubts, anything that you noticed, anything that was different, or something that you liked, or something that you think could be done better? Okay. I'll make the question a little easier for you. What was the first thing that you noticed about the session? Can you use this?
Vinay lately introducing himself.
Vinay introduced himself. Okay, that's a good one. Anything else? What did you notice? He was making notes. Okay, what else?
Ma'am, he didn't ask what made him to come for a counseling.
He did not ask him what made him come to counseling. Okay, interesting observation actually.
It was very relaxed and very open.
It was very relaxed and very open, right?
Good communication.
Good communication, all right. Ice breaking could have been better, all right. His responding again and again, all right. So I'll just summarize the answers that we've all gotten. So one thing we could see that the conversation was relaxed and open. There was continuous response from the side of the counselor. And he introduced himself, and ice breaking could have been better, right? All right. So now these are all very personal observations that you've all have noticed, right? So just keep a note of all of these things, and when it's your turn to come and practice the drills, keep all of these few things in mind, right? But thank you so much for Anusha, Mahima, Vinay, and Prem for taking part in today's drills. The others, you haven't escaped yet. Your time will still come. And we are going to go into the next chapter. We'll look at particular issues when it comes to counseling. All right. So something that's very important as counselors to remember is what is mental health in the first place, right? So when you're practicing in this field, we would be normally dealing with a person's mental health. We would be looking at their physical health and spiritual health also, but one of the key things that we would be focusing on is mental health. So what is actually mental health? Mental health is the focus that you put into the person's psychological well-being. And psychological well-being looks at the person's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, right? And the actions that come after that. And how do these things, especially a person's thoughts and feelings, affect a person later on? And we also look at if there is the presence or the absence of a mental disorder, right? So in our case, unless somebody is practicing solely from the point of a psychological perspective, what we tend to look at is whether this person has a mental disorder or not. Because if they do, then they will need proper psychological interventions, and if needed, psychiatric help, which means they would need medications, right? But looking at a person's mental health, we have to see whether they have certain mental disorders, and depression also comes as a part of this, right? Depression is a sickness that our thoughts and our brains go through. So one thing that is helpful for us to remember is the brain is also an organ, right? And an organ can fall sick, and an organ can also get better, right? In the same way, sometimes we have muscle pain, our stomachs hurt, sometimes we have issues with liver and kidney. Our brains can also go through the same, right? So what are the different signs of a person having good mental health? So one is they have good level of self-acceptance, which means you accept yourself for who you are, with your problems, with everything, but then a good view of yourself, right? You appreciate yourself for who you are. You know that you have your shortcomings, but all in all, you don't hate yourself. You still love yourself, right? Then you live in harmony with your friends, your family, your colleagues, which means communication-wise, things are good, right? Next is you are satisfied with your job or the place that where you're in. And then you have freedom from fears and different compulsions that you may have. So you're not constantly anxious for an entire week or, things like that. But again, this is different. If you're having exams, makes sense for you to be anxious the entire week because there is something that's pushing you to be anxious, right? Next is all of the different other points that come there. And a few things for us to remember is the second last one, knowing and understanding that security, self-worth, and significance come from a personal relationship with God. Do you remember where we picked this up? before all of this? Pardon? In the case of Dennis, so that means in the previous chapters, right? We have picked this up. So remembering that security, self-worth, and significance also comes from God, right? So now, what are the different things that can contribute to mental health problems? So we have biological factors, right? Sometimes the brain chemistry or our own genes tend to affect how our brains function. We also have life experiences that affect us in a certain way, and family history, like things that you've gone through, or if you started having mental health problems. And there's a whole list of different problems, right? Now, we need to understand that as counselors, all of these things revolve together. We can't exclude any of these things, right? Because it's still an organ. Organ meaning biology. If something goes wrong biologically, you'll have to address it biologically. It's as simple as that, right? It's like when we get fever, you take medicines for fever, you eat good food, you wear warm clothes, you're not jumping in the water with shorts. Can't do that, right? So if you're sick biologically, you treat it biologically, right? But usually, when it comes to mental health, it's everything kind of revolves together. So it's like a big onion. You can't just choose to look at just one peel, right? So as a Christian, how do we view mental health? Now, this is a question that tends to be a little tricky because sometimes we feel that because you're a Christian, you shouldn't have problems. None of these things should exist. But if you're looking at the Bible, so many differences and so many different instances of the different characters that are there, they all went through so much pain, right? But what was the one surety that we got through it all? God was there. God helped them. God understood. Whether they were angry, they were discontent, they were frustrated. Especially when you look at David, his psalms were really sad, right? But then what happens? God shows up and God helps, right? Which means that it is okay for you to have certain problems. Sometimes you can't really escape. Sometimes life just hits you in a certain way. Can't avoid it, right? But there is hope, right? And if we look at all of the examples of the Bible, God never left. He was always ever present there. It's just that if you look at David, I'll just take that example. Sometimes he thinks that God is not there because he's too into his problems, right? He's writing on and on about his agony. But once that agony dies down, he realizes that he wasn't alone the entire time. God was still there. It's just that sometimes we can't think to see that God is there, right? But God is always there to be able to help. So now, as a Christian, we need to realize that these sicknesses exist. Why? Because firstly, the brain is also just an organ, and organs can fall sick, right? So we have to treat it, and it's okay to ask for help when we need help. It's just that it's not an organ that like gives very like solid, like, okay, stomach ache or fever. That's why it's a little harder for us to grasp the fact that it can fall sick. But as a Christian, there are different things that we can do, right? So do what you can to help them, right? When things are not okay. Now, this is just as a point of view of a Christian helping anybody who's going through a mental health crisis, right? Next is get educated, learn about the different things. Because without education, it'd be very hard to actually understand. So, for example, if a person is saying that they're depressed, and you're saying just pray about it and it'll go, like, yeah, like God can actually do that, but then you can't just say pray about it to a person who's like that, right? So you need to understand, why is the person depressed? Did something happen? And usually when it comes to depression, neurotransmitters in the head tends to be imbalanced. So you need to understand that there is a biological imbalance in the head as well with neurotransmitters, right? So they might need help in that space. Especially if it's gone for really long, they might need medical interventions as well. So saying just pray about it and it'll go might not help, because God has also given doctors the brains to help people, right? And if you're in a helping profession, God has put you there to help other people, right? So be that vessel in between to help other people through God, right? Next is face your fears also. So if mental illness scares you, right, like helping other people in this space, then maybe that is something to think about, because it's also not a space for everybody, and it's understandable, right? It's a little challenging sometimes. It can get challenging. So if this is a space, you can ask God to help you through it, because sometimes in order for us to help each other, we need to understand us first, and to clear out our hearts, only God knows what's going on inside, right? Next is understand that people with mental illnesses are also just humans. So if you're going through trouble, how would you want people to help you, right? Help them as you would want yourselves to be helped. Next is be friendly, smile. It's okay, they're still human beings, right? And patience is key. When we're going through a lot of things, sometimes all we need is somebody who's patient with us to get through things, right? Next one, which is also important, is acknowledge your limitations. If you're not a mental health professional and you know that certain things are way beyond your capacity, maybe all that you can do is help people in relationship problems or school problems. That's okay. Don't cross beyond something that you can't do. Otherwise, it will damage the person even more, right? Then ask how they're doing. Listen. Sometimes that is the only thing that can help them also, because most people would avoid people who are mentally not okay. But remember, they're still human beings, right? God still loves them. And who are we to be like, no, right? But of course, understand your own limitations. Don't force yourself into something that you can't take, right? Next is stick with them. Sometimes they just need a friend. They might not even need a professional. So if you know of somebody and you're not helping them in a professional capacity, you're helping them as a friend. That's okay. Sometimes they just need somebody to journey with them, right? So we will stop here for today and we will pick up the common issues. Actually, this is pretty easy when we're looking at the different issues that we may go through. And so just go through this a little bit. We will look at the guidelines when we meet in class again. But up till what we've done now, please go through your notes, right? Because in the following few classes, we will still keep practicing on drills. So based on the examples that you've gotten today, please remember them and it would be good. Please explain about support group in the next class. Sure. Just remind me once also. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so we'll close for today. We'll just quickly pray and we'll end the class, all right? Right. Father God, we thank you for giving us another day, God, giving us the start of a new week, for us to be able to come and continue to learn. Father, we pray that as we continue to journey into this, God, your wisdom and your guidance flows through us. We pray that everything that we do aligns us closer to the will that you have for us, God, and bless each and everybody in this classroom. Help us to do well, and we continue to commit ourselves into your hands, Jesus, and let everything that we do be done for your kingdom, your glory, and your honor, Lord. And we pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you so much for joining in today, class. I will see you next week.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.